The clock on the kitchen wall ticked loudly. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound felt heavier than the last. Vine stood by the sink, rinsing the last plate from dinner, even though it had already been cleaned for a while. Her hands moved automatically under the running water. Your mind somewhere else entirely. In the living room, she could hear the faint rustle of newspaper pages. He was still there, Chenko. Her husband, her eyes closed briefly as his name crossed her mind. Vine had been married for 4 years now. 4 wonderful, chaotic, exhausting, beautiful years. And in those 4 years, she had built a life together. One that now revolved around a tiny, giggling 2-year-old girl named Rawa. Normally, evenings in her house were warm and noisy. Roya would be running around with her toys while Jungkook chased her dramatically through the living room. Vine would pretend to scold them both while secretly smiling at their antics. But tonight was different. Tonight there was only silence because Vine and Jungkook had fought, not a small disagreement, a real fight. Earlier that evening, it had started with something stupid. Most fight did. Jungkook had come home dinner late again. Vine had been waiting with dinner ready. Roa already fed and sleepy. When he walked in at almost 9, loosening his tie and looking exhausted, irritation that had been simmering inside her all week instantly picked up. Late again, she had asked. He sighed, dropping his bag on the couch. It was work. It's always work. That was how it started. Then came the frustration, the accusations, the tired voices raised too high. You think I enjoyed this wine? He snapped. You promised you would be home earlier this week. You shot back. I'm trying. Well, it doesn't feel like it. Roya had been playing on the carpet nearby, looking up at both of them with wide, confused eyes. The moment Vine noticed her watching, the girl hid immediately. But the damage had already begun. Words had been said, hard feelings had surfaced. Eventually, the argument ended the worst way possible, with silence, with resolution, just distance. Present, Vine turned off the water and dried her hands slowly. From the kitchen doorway, she could see the living room. Jungkook sat on the couch, elbows resting on his knees, the newspaper open in front of him. Though she was faintly certain he hadn't turned a page in the last 10 minutes. He looked tired, more tired than usual. For a moment, guilt pricked her chest, but stubbornness held its ground. He should apologize first, right? Her gaze drifted away before he could notice her watching. At that exact moment, a tiny voice shouted down the hallway, "Mama!" Vine's heart softened instantly. Rawa? Small footsteps padded through the kitchen. Rawa appeared a second later, wearing her tiny pink pajamas, hair messy from rolling around in bed. Vine immediately knelt down. "Sweetheart, why are you out of bed?" She rubbed her eyes sleepily. "I need water." Vine smiled softly, grabbing her little cup and filling it halfway. "Here." She drank slowly and then leaned into Vine, resting her small head on Vine's shoulder. "Tired?" she murmured. Roya nodded. Vine's eyes drifted once again toward the living room. Jungkook had looked up. His gaze met Vine's across the room. For just a second, then both of them quickly looked away. The silence between them felt even heavier now. Roa didn't notice any of it. She finished her water and handed the cup back. "Bedtime again?" Vine asked gently. Roa nodded. Vine lifted her into her arms and carried her back to her bedroom. Roa's bedroom was soft and warm, filled with stuffed animals and pastel colors. Vine took her under the blanket carefully. Usually Jungkook joined Vine during the bedtime. He would read a short story while Roa giggled and tried to grab the pages, but tonight he hadn't come. Vine smoothed her hair gently. "Sleep time, baby." She blinked slowly and then suddenly she sat up. "Mama?" "Yes." She looked toward the hallway. "Good night, kiss." Vine's heart skipped because she knew exactly what Roa meant. Every night, without fail, Roa had the same routine. She kissed you, then She ran to Jungkook for a goodnight kiss too. Wine's chest tightened slightly. She had almost forgotten. Wine hesitated. Roa, but Roa had already climbed out of bed. Her tiny feet padded toward the door. Wine followed quickly. Roa, wait! Too late. She was already running down the hallway straight toward the living room where Jungkook was sitting. Jungkook looked up in surprise when Roa ran toward him. Papa! He immediately put the newspaper aside and opened his arms. There's my little monster. She climbed into his lap happily. Wine stopped in the hallway, watching quietly, her chest twisted slightly at the side. He kissed the top of Roa's head automatically. Shouldn't you be sleeping? He asked softly. Good night, Kiss, she said proudly. He chuckled. You already got one. She shook her head vigorously. Not Mama. Jungkook blinked. Then his eyes flicked up, straight to Wine. She froze because Roa was now pointing at her. Papa, kiss Mama. The room went completely still. Her stomach dropped. Jungkook looked just as stunned. Roa clapped her hands exactly. Night kiss. She didn't understand. To her, it was just a nightly ritual. Mama kisses Roa, Papa kisses Roa, Mama kisses Papa. Everyone says goodnight, but tonight, Wine and Jungkook had never spoken in 2 hours, and now their daughter expected the usual. Her eyes met his again. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Roa looked between both of them impatiently. Come, she tugged on Jungkook's shirt, then pointed at Wine again. Kiss, Mama. Jungkook rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Wine could see the same thoughts racing through his mind. The fight, the silence, the unresolved tension. And now, this. Roa slid off his lap and grabbed his hand. Then she ran toward Wine, dragging him behind her. Wine's heart started pounding faster. Roa, he whispered nervously. But she stopped right in front of Wine, both and looking up proudly. Kiss. Wine and Jungkook stood face to face now, closer than either of them had been since the argument. The air felt charged, uncomfortable. Their daughter beamed. Night kiss. Wine swallowed. Jungkook looked just as conflicted because neither of them wanted to disappoint her, but neither of them had figured out how to face each other yet. For a second, Roa pouted, then she pushed both of their hands together. Her fingers brushed Jungkook's accidentally. The contact sent a strange spark to them. Roa giggled. Kiss, Mama. Jungkook looked at Wine. Wine looked up at him, and for the first time since the fight, both of them hesitated for the exact same reason. Not anger, but because neither of them knew how to break the silence first. The hallway light glowed softly above both of them. Roa stood between Wine and Jungkook like a tiny commander overseeing a very important mission. Her small hands were still wrapped around both of theirs, trying to pull them closer together. Kiss, she said again happily. Wine and Jungkook exchanged another glance. It was brief, awkward, full of things neither of them had said yet. Their daughter had no idea that only a few hours ago the two of them had been arguing in the kitchen, voices raised, frustration spilling over. To Roa, this moment was simple. Every night before the bed, Mama and Papa shared a little goodnight kiss. It was just how the world worked. In her mind, the world needed to stay that way. Jungkook cleared his throat softly. Roa, sweetheart, Mama is tired. Maybe tonight we just... No, her tiny voice was firm. Wine almost smiled. She folded her arms, looking surprisingly serious for someone wearing dinosaur pajamas. Night kiss. Jungkook looked helplessly at Wine. Wine's lips pressed together to keep from laughing. Despite everything, Roa's stubbornness was painfully adorable. She stepped back slightly, placing her hands on her hips now. Exactly like Wine did when she were annoyed. Jungkook noticed too, his eyebrow twitched. She got that from you, he murmured quietly. Wine's eyes lifted to him. For the first time since the argument, he had spoken directly to her. The words weren't angry, just quiet, tired. Vine didn't respond, but something in the tension between them softened by a tiny fraction. Roa was still watching both of them like a referee. Papa? Yes, tiny boss. Kiss Mama. He sighed. Shingoku rubbed the back of his neck again before glancing at Vine. Vine could see the hesitation in his eyes, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know if you wanted him to. The fight from earlier hovered between you both like an invisible wall. Roa waited impatiently. Then she grabbed Jungkook's hand again and pushed him closer. Do it! Mind playing, Jungkook almost laughed under his breath. You see what you created? He muttered quietly toward Vine. Her arms crossed defensively. I created? Yes, that attitude is definitely yours. Vine raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? He shrugged slightly. Before the conversation could turn into another argument, Roa stomped her foot. Papa! Both of them immediately looked down at her. She was frowning now, a dramatic kind of frown that only toddlers could produce. You forgot. Forgot what? Jungkook asked gently. She pointed between the both of them again. Guess? Her little face looked genuinely concerned now. Vine's heart squeezed painfully. She thought something was wrong. Children noticed more than people believed. Jungkook noticed too. His expression softened immediately. He crouched down to Roa's level. Hey, hey. He brushed the hair away from her face. Nothing's wrong, baby. She looked unconvinced. She pointed at Vine again. Papa, love Mama. The words were simple, matter of fact, but they hit Vine both harder than anything else that evening. Vine's chest tightened. Jungkook went still. Roa looked between both of them again. Right? For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Jungkook nodded gently. Yeah. His voice was quiet. I love Mama. Vine's throat felt strangely tight hearing those words because despite the argument, despite the frustration, Vine knew he meant it. Roa brightened instantly. Then kiss. Vine slowly exhaled. This child was relentless. Jungkook stood back up slowly, now only a step away from Vine. Roa clapped excitedly. Vine's heart was beating faster now, not because the kiss was meant something dramatic. Vine and Jungkook had kissed thousands of times before, but tonight felt different. Tonight the silence between was too long. Breaking it felt oddly vulnerable. Jungkook rubbed the back of his neck again. Then he spoke quietly. His eyes flicked toward Roa, then back to Vine. We should probably. Vine raised an eyebrow. Probably what? Kiss? He said awkwardly. Her lips twitched slightly. Your idea? He scoffed softly. My idea? Vine nodded toward Roa. She's clearly your accomplice. Roa giggled happily. Do it? Jungkook sighed again. Then he stepped closer. Now there was barely any space between you both. The familiar scent of his cologne drifted toward you. Something warm and nostalgic stirred in your chest. You hadn't realized how far apart the two of you had felt tonight until this moment. His voice dropped quieter. Roa isn't going to let this go. Vine glanced down at her tiny daughter. She was practically bouncing with excitement. Nope, Vine admitted. Another pause settled between them. But this one felt different, less sharp, more uncertain. Finally, Jungkook looked at her properly. His eyes softened slightly. I didn't mean to stay late again. The words came out suddenly, unexpected. Vine blinked. That was not what she was expecting him to say. I know, she replied quietly. Another moment passed. I should have texted. He added too. Jungkook's smile switched faintly. That was the closest thing to an apology either of them had managed tonight. Roa clapped again. Kiss now? They both laughed quietly this time. Jungkook shook his head. She's really serious about this. Very. He hesitated one more second, then leaned down. The kiss was soft, brief, familiar, just a small peck like it always was before bedtime. But somehow it felt bigger tonight. When he pulled back, Roa cheered. The both of them looked down at her, startled. She threw her tiny arms into the air triumphantly. Night guess, Changuk laughed quietly. You are ridiculous. She grinned proudly, then suddenly she hugged both of their legs at once. Happy, Wine's chest warmed instantly. Changuk gently picked her up again. All right, tiny boss, bedtime for real now. She nodded sleepily. But before he could carry her away, she pointed at Vine again. Mama, come. Vine sighed painfully. Yes, Commander. The three of them walked back toward Roya's room together. Something in the air had changed. The silence from earlier was still there, but it didn't feel so cold anymore. Chingo carefully tucked Roya into bed again. She was already half asleep. He kissed her forehead. Good night, monster. Vine brushed her head gently. Sweet dreams, her tiny voice murmured softly. Love, Mama, love, Papa. Then she was asleep. Vine and Chengok stood quietly beside the bed for a moment, then slowly stepped out into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind them. Now the two of them were alone again. The earlier argument still lingered somewhere beneath the surface, but the small moment they shared with Rova had cracked the wall between them both. Shinguk leaned against the hallway wall. You know she is going to do that every night now. Wine smiled faintly. Probably. Another quiet moment passed, then he glanced at you. You are still mad? Wine struck lightly. You are still stubborn? He snorted softly. That's rich coming from you, wifey. She crossed her arms again, but this time there was less bite behind it. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Shenguk sighed again. I really did try to leave earlier, you know. Her expression softened slightly. Really? His eyes met hers, and this time neither of them looked away. Because the truth was, the fight had never been about anger, it had been about missing each other. For a moment, Jungkook simply looked at her. Then a small smile slowly appeared on his face. You know it's funny. What is? All evening we were too stubborn to talk, and it took a tiny human demanding kisses to face it. She laughed. She really wasn't taking no for an answer. Nope. He leaned back again. Roa, the professional peacemaker, certified. They both sat quietly again, but this time the quiet felt warm, comfortable. After a moment, Jungkook looked at her again. So, Vine raised an eyebrow. So, are we officially done fighting? She pretended to think about it. He narrowed her eyes. The hesitation is suspicious. She smiled teasingly. Well, there is one thing. Hey Gravan, of course there is. You left your socks in the hallway again this morning. Shengok blinked. You are bringing up that now? You started the argument topic. He shook his head dramatically. I can't win with you. Correct. He leaned closer slightly, but seriously. Her playful smile softened when he saw the gentle expression in his eyes. Yes, we are okay? She nodded. Yeah. His shoulders visibly relaxed. Good. Then, after a brief pause, he added quietly, I missed you tonight. Her heart skipped. You saw me all evening. That's not the same. She knew exactly what he meant. Being in the same room didn't mean being close. Earlier that night, she had felt miles apart. But now she felt like herself again. She shifted slightly closer on the couch, not dramatically, just enough that her shoulders brushed his. Jungkook noticed immediately. His hand moved instinctively to rest lightly over hers. You know, he murmured, I didn't know Roa is expecting this every night. She smiled. You didn't notice this usually become a good night kiss routine since she was a baby? Yeah, she tilted her head. Are you complaining? He shook his head slowly, not in any way. Then he added softly, I kinda like the tradition. Her fingers intertwined with his. Me too, another comfortable silence settled between them. This one felt full of understanding, full of love. After a while, Jungkook nudged her gently. One more thing. What? He smiled slightly. Rawa said we had to kiss. She raised an eyebrow. She said that earlier and we did it too. She didn't specify a let. Vine stared at him for a moment, then laughed softly. You're ridiculous. Maybe. He leaned closer, but I'm also technically following raw orders. Vine shook her head, but she didn't move away. This time the kiss wasn't quick or awkward like they did in the hallway. It was slow, gentle, familiar in the most comforting way, the kind of kiss that reminded her why she chose each other in the first place. But then he finally pulled back. Mine rested her head lightly against his shoulder. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt warm, peaceful, the kind of silence that belonged in a home filled with love. Down the hallway, Roa slept soundly in her little bed, completely unaware that her simple bedtime tradition had quietly stitched her parents' hearts back together that night. And in the living room, Vine and Jungkook sat together on the couch, fingers intertwined, no more silent treatment, no more walls. Just a quiet comfort of knowing that even after arguments, even after frustration, love was still there.